The moment Elena Carter stepped out of the black luxury car, the entire atmosphere outside the Royal Crescent Hotel shifted. Not because someone announced her arrival, not because cameras flashed, but because some women did not need introductions. They arrived like events. A gust of cold evening wind swept across the marble driveway, teasing the loose waves of Elena's chestnut brown hair as it cascaded over her bare shoulders. The emerald satin gown hugged her body with effortless elegance, off-shoulder, fluid, expensive without trying too hard. The kind of dress that didn't beg for attention. It commanded it. Her heels clicked against polished stone in slow, measured rhythm. Click, click, click. Every step was precise, controlled, graceful, as though she had practiced this walk her entire life. Above her, crystal chandeliers glowed through the towering glass entrance of the hotel, spilling warm golden light across the night. Inside was one of the most exclusive galas in the city, the Blackwell Foundation Winter Gala, an annual gathering where billionaires, politicians, heirs, luxury designers, and media elites gathered to pretend they were there for charity. But everyone knew the truth. Events like this were never just events. They were battlefields disguised in champagne and diamonds. And tonight, Elena had every reason to be here. Or so she believed. A valet opened the grand glass doors. The second Elena stepped inside, conversation slowed. Not stopped. Slowed. That subtle shift humans made when something more interesting entered the room. Heads turned. First one. Then another. Then 5 more. A woman near the champagne tower paused mid-sentence. A man adjusting his cufflinks looked up and forgot what he was saying. Even the pianist in the corner seemed to hesitate for half a breath. Elena noticed. Of course she noticed. She noticed everything. But her face revealed nothing. Her expression remained composed, softly unreadable, lips curved in the faintest polite smile. Inside, the ballroom was breathtaking. Red velvet drapes framed towering arched windows. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen galaxies from impossibly high ceilings. White-gloved servers moved through the crowd carrying trays of champagne. A string quartet played beneath a spiral staircase wrapped in white roses and candlelight. Luxury was everywhere. Manufactured perfection. And Elena fit into it as though she had been born from it. Not a single detail out of place. Not the diamond studs at her ears. Not the satin clutch in her hand. Not even the quiet confidence in the way she held herself. But confidence was not the same thing as peace. And beneath all that elegance, Elena's heartbeat betrayed her. Fast. Sharp. Anticipatory. Because tonight mattered. More than anyone here knew. She scanned the ballroom discreetly, searching, not for attention, for him, Adrian Blackwell. Heir, the city's most untouchable billionaire, and the one man capable of reducing Elena's carefully built composure into something far more dangerous. Emotion. Their story was not public, could never be public, not in rooms like this. Not among people who fed on scandal. But private truths had a way of becoming public disasters, especially in places glittering with secrets. Elena exhaled slowly. Where was he? A passing server offered champagne. She accepted a glass, mostly to occupy her hands. The stem was cool between her fingers. She lifted it but didn't drink. Her eyes continued searching the room. Near the center of the ballroom, a group of investors laughed too loudly. Near the staircase, socialites posed for photos. Near the orchestra, nothing. No Adrian. A flicker of disappointment crossed her face so quickly it was almost imaginary. Maybe he was late. He was always late. Not because he lacked discipline. Because everyone else adjusted around his schedule. A dangerous habit of powerful men. Elena, A familiar female voice interrupted her thoughts. Elena turned. Standing before her was Vivian Hale, a well-known luxury magazine editor with platinum blonde hair arranged in impossible perfection. Her smile was sharp enough to qualify as a weapon. "Elena Carter," Vivian said, eyes sweeping over her gown. "You look breathtaking." "Thank you, Vivian." Emerald was a risky choice. Elena tilted her head slightly. "And yet." Vivian laughed. Short. Measured. "Oh, you always were confident." "Always were." Interesting phrasing. Like confidence was temporary. Or punishable. Elena smilet politeli. She knew women like Vivian. Compliments wrapped in warning labels. Still, she remained calm. "Enjoy your evening," Elena said smoothly. Before Vivian could continue, Elena moved away. No wasted energy.
No unnecessary conversation.
Just movement. Forward. Always forward. She made her way toward the balcony entrance, where the noise softened into a more tolerable hum. Her heels sank slightly into thick crimson carpet. She could feel eyes still following her, judging, admiring, comparing, projecting. A woman like Elena never simply attended rooms like this. She altered their temperature. But tonight, she wasn't here to be observed. She was here for answers. And then, her phone vibrated. One message. Private number. Her pulse jumped. She opened it. "He's here. Top floor entrance. 5 minutes. No name.
No explanation.
Just that." Her fingers tightened around the phone. 5 minutes. 1,000 possible meanings lived inside 5 minutes. Elena inhaled. Slowly. Her mind raced. Why top floor entrance? Why not the main ballroom? Why the secrecy? Something felt unusual. But unusual had become normal where Adrian was concerned. She glanced at her reflection in a nearby mirrored column. Perfect. Untouched. Collected. Good. No one could see the tension tightening inside her chest. She adjusted one strand of hair behind her ear and moved toward the staircase. Each step upward felt heavier. Not physically. Emotionally. As though instinct itself was whispering caution. Something is wrong. But Elena ignored it. Because hope was louder. And hope had always been her weakness. Halfway up the staircase, she paused briefly and glanced back at the ballroom below. From this angle, everyone looked smaller. Like pieces on a chessboard. Moving. Positioning. Waiting. She suddenly felt like she was walking into a move she hadn't calculated. Still, she continued. At the top landing, the music below softened into distant elegance. The hallway ahead was quieter, more private. Gold wall sconces cast warm shadows across cream marble walls. Luxury without witnesses. Her phone still rested in her palm. 5 minutes. For now. She walked toward the corridor. Then stopped. Because she heard something. Laughter. Not ballroom laughter. Closer. Intimate.
Familiar.
A woman's voice. Soft. Happy. And then. His. Low. Controlled. Unmistakable. Adrian. Elena Froze. Not from fear. From recognition. That voice could find her in any crowd, any country, any lifetime. Her heartbeat became deafening. He was just beyond the partially open double doors ahead. She stepped closer. One breath. Then another. Her fingers brushed the gold handle. And with one small movement, she pushed the door open. What Elena saw on the other side made her entire world stop. Elena's hand froze on the gold handle. For one impossible second, her brain refused to process what her eyes were seeing. as though reality itself had glitched. Inside the private reception room, the atmosphere was softer than the grand ballroom below, more intimate, more deliberate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the glittering city skyline, framing a world of lights beneath velvet darkness. Candlelight flickered across crystal glasses arranged on a polished table. White orchids decorated every surface with calculated elegance. This wasn't an accident. This room had been prepared for something or someone, and standing in the center of it all was Adrian Blackwell. Perfectly tailored black tuxedo, broad shoulders, dark hair swept back with effortless precision. The kind of man who looked expensive even in silence. He was turned slightly sideways, one hand tucked casually into his pocket, the other holding a glass of champagne he clearly had no intention of drinking. Even from this distance, his presence was magnetic, controlled, dangerous. The kind of man entire rooms unconsciously rearranged themselves around. The kind of man Elena had spent far too much time convincing herself she could survive. But Adrian was not the reason her blood turned cold. It was the woman standing beside him. Tall, blonde, elegant in a silver couture gown that caught candlelight like liquid diamonds. Her manicured hand rested lightly on Adrian's arm with the kind of familiarity that made Elena physically ill. Not casual, not accidental, claiming, possessive, public. And on that woman's left hand, a diamond ring large enough to start conversations across continents. Elena started. No. No, no, no. This had to be wrong. Her breathing became shallow, like the room had suddenly lost oxygen. She blinked once, twice. The image didn't change. Still there, still real, still devastating. A small group surrounded them, investors, socialites, older board members, all smiling with the polished enthusiasm reserved for expensive announcements. Someone raised a glass. To Adrian and Sophia. Laughter followed. Warm, approving, celebratory. Elena felt something inside her crack. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a quiet internal fracture. The kind that changes a person permanently. Sophia. So this was her name. The mysterious woman whispered about in business columns. The one tabloid speculated Adrian might be strategically aligned with. Strategically aligned. As though human beings were mergers. As though love could be explained through portfolio language. Elena swallowed hard. Her throat felt lined with glass. Adrian said something Elena couldn't hear. Sophia laughed and leaned closer. Too close. Too natural. Too practiced. Elena's grip tightened around her clutch until her knuckles whitened. This wasn't just a date. This wasn't just company politics. This was an announcement. A presentation. A reveal. And apparently, Elena had not been important enough to be informed. A familiar sickness curled in her stomach. Humiliation always arrived in stages. First disbelief. Then understanding. Then pain. She was currently somewhere between stages 2 and 3. Her chest tightened. Memories flashed through her mind in violent fragments. Adrian's voice late at night. His hand brushing hers in private elevators. His messages. His promises. The way he once looked at her as though the rest of the world was an inconvenience. All of it replayed now like evidence presented against her own stupidity. How elegantly she had been deceived. A waiter passed behind Elena, nearly brushing her shoulder. The slight movement snapped her back into the present. She needed to leave. Immediately. Before someone noticed her. Before her expression betrayed her. Before whatever remained of her dignity dissolved entirely. She stepped backward quietly. One careful step. Then another. But heels and polished marble had never been allies. A single sharp click echoed louder than it should have. Too loud. Too distinct. Heads turned. One by one. Conversation slowed. Then stopped. 100 invisible needles seemed to pierce Elena's skin at once. No. No, no, no. Not this. Not here. Sophia looked first. Her expression shifted subtly, confusion, then recognition of an uninvited variable. But Adrian turned last. Their eyes met, and the entire room disappeared.
No skyline. No champagne.
No investors. No orchestra below. Nothing. Only him. And the expression on his face. Not guilt. Not shock. Not panic. Something worse. Calculation. As though his mind was already several moves ahead, determining damage control. That hurt more than anything. Because heartbreak was survivable. Being managed was not. For a second, neither of them moved. Elena felt nailed to the floor by the sheer force of humiliation. Adrian's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. He set his champagne glass down. Not rushed. Not flustered. Still composed. Always composed. Of course. The world could be burning and Adrian Blackwell would still look expensive. Elena. Just her name. Low. Controlled. But hearing it now felt like an insult. Not after this. Not after allowing her to walk unknowingly into her own emotional execution. Sophia's gaze flickered between them. Interesting. So she noticed something. Good. Let her. Let everyone. A man near the table cleared his throat awkwardly. The room's discomfort thickened into something almost visible. Someone was enjoying this. Elena didn't need to look to know it. Rooms like this thrived on implosion. And she had just become tonight's entertainment. A faint smile touched the lips of a woman in navy silk near the fireplace. There it was. Predators recognizing blood. Elena forced herself to inhale. Once. Slowly. Her pulse thundered so violently she could hear it. Do not break here. Whatever happens next. Do not break here. Her face transformed through sheer willpower. Pain hidden. Emotion buried. Expression neutralized. A performance polished by years of discipline. Well, Elena said softly. Her own voice startled her. Calm. Almost too calm. Congratulations. The word tasted poisonous. Sophia blinked. Adrian took one measured step forward. Elena, wait. Wait. Interesting choice. Wait for what? Clarification? An explanation? A beautifully packaged lie. Something inside Elena almost laughed. Instead, she smiled. Small. Sharp. Devastatingly polite. No need. Her gaze flicked briefly to Sophia's ring. Then back to Adrian. Message delivered. Understood. No translation required. For the first time tonight, something real cracked through Adrian's composure. A shadow crossed his features. Regret? Annoyance? Concern? Too late to matter. Far too late. Elena shifted her clutch beneath one arm, spine impossibly straight. Grace was all she had left, and she would not surrender it. Not here. Not to him. Not to this room. Not to these people. She turned. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But Elena Carter did not run. She exited with dignity sharpened into armor. Each heel strike echoed across marble like a countdown. Click. 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 She could feel the room watching her leave. Could practically hear the mental headlines already forming. Who is she? Why did Adrian react like that? Was there history? Was she crying? No. She absolutely refused. Not one tear. Not yet. Not until walls existed around her. Not until witnesses were gone. Not until her body was allowed to betray her. She reached the corridor outside and the double doors shut behind her with soft finality. The second they closed, her composure cracked. Air left her lungs in a shaky exhale. Her hands trembled violently. The hallway blurred. Warm gold lighting suddenly felt cruel. Too bright. Too exposing. Her heartbeat was chaos now. Wild. Humiliating. Uncontrollable. She pressed one palm flat against the marble wall to steady herself. Cold stone. Good. Something solid. Something real. Because right now, reality felt suspiciously unstable. This cannot be happening. But it was. It had happened. And no amount of denial could unsee a diamond ring. Her vision burned. Not tears. Not yet. Close, though. Dangerously close. Downstairs, faint music floated upward from the ballroom. A violin. Elegant. Indifferent. As though the world had not just collapsed in designer heels. Elena laughed once. A tiny, broken sound. Almost humorless. How absurd. She had spent hours getting ready for this evening. Choosing the dress. Perfecting makeup. Rehearsing confidence. Believing, like an absolute fool, that tonight might finally mean something. And it did. Just not what she expected. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. She stared at the screen. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped. Slowly, she opened it. Leave now. It gets worse in 10 minutes. Elena went still. What? Her pulse spiked harder. Who was sending these? Why? What gets worse? 1,000 possibilities flooded her mind at once, none of them remotely comforting. Inside the private room, muffled voices rose again. Movement. Doors shifting. Someone was coming. Elena looked toward the staircase. Then back toward the doors. Decision time. Stay and risk complete destruction. Or leave with whatever fragments of dignity remained. This time, the choice was easy. She pushed away from the wall and started walking. Fast. Not running. Never running. But fast enough to communicate urgency to anyone perceptive enough to notice. Her heels struck marble in rapid succession. Click, click, click. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead. Too long. Too exposed. Behind her, a door opened. Elena. Adrian. His voice, sharper now. Closer. Not the controlled tone from earlier. This one carried something else. Urgency. She did not turn around. Not once. Instead, she walked faster. Toward the staircase. Toward escape. Toward whatever remained of herself after tonight. But footsteps followed. Heavy. Determined. Getting closer. Much closer. And just before Elena reached the first stair, a hand closed gently but firmly around her wrist. She stopped. Frozen. Heart slamming against her ribs. Adrian's voice came low beside her ear. You're leaving too early. Elena slowly turned. And what she saw in his eyes made absolutely no sense. Not relief. Not anger. Not indifference. Possession. Raw and unmistakable. As though despite everything she had just witnessed, he still believed she belonged to him. Adrian's fingers remained wrapped around Elena's wrist. Not painfully. Not aggressively. Just firmly enough to remind her of one dangerous truth. He was used to being obeyed. Elena looked down at his hand, then slowly lifted her gaze back to his face. For one suspended second, neither of them spoke. The hallway around them seemed to narrow. Gold lighting. cream marble. Distant violin music bleeding upward from the ballroom below. Everything suddenly felt too sharp, too vivid, too real. Elena's pulse was still out of control, slamming violently against her ribs like it wanted escape before the rest of her could. She should pull away. She knew she should. But betrayal had a strange way of freezing the body before it broke it. Adrian studied her face with unsettling focus, as though trying to assess damage, calculate fallout, find whatever version of Elena existed before she walked into that room. Unfortunately for him, that version was gone. "What are you doing?" Elena asked quietly. Her voice was low, controlled, but dangerously close to splintering. Adrian didn't release her. "You shouldn't leave." The audacity was almost autistic. A small laugh escaped Elena before she could stop it. Not amused. Not warm. Just disbelief given sound. "I shouldn't leave." Her words were soft enough to be mistaken for calm. That made them more dangerous. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Elena."
No.
She finally pulled her wrist free. This time, harder. The contact broke. A tiny separation that somehow felt seismic. Elena took one deliberate step backward. Space. Necessary.
Urgent.
Protective. She folded her arms lightly, not out of comfort, but containment, as though physically holding herself together. "What exactly would you have preferred?" she asked. Her eyes locked onto his. "That I stayed." He said nothing. Wrong move. Because silence after betrayal was gasoline. Elena tilted her head slightly. Interesting. He still wasn't explaining. Still wasn't denying. Still somehow standing there as though she owed him patience. Unbelievable. "You invited me here." Her voice sharpened, just slightly. "I arrived thinking this evening means something." She gestured faintly toward the room behind him. "Instead, I walk into a private engagement showcase." "It's not what you think." Ah, there it was. The oldest sentence in emotional crime history.
Elena blinked slowly.
Then smiled. Not kindly. That smile should have worried him more. Do men like you receive formal training for that line? Something flickered across Adrian's expression. Annoyance. Not because she was wrong. Because she was refusing to be manageable. Below them, faint laughter drifted upward from the ballroom. A cruel reminder that life continued with irritating indifference. Adrian lowered his voice. "This isn't the place." Elena almost applauded. Of course. Not the place. Humiliation could apparently be public. Explanation required better acoustics. "How convenient," she murmured. Before Adrian could respond, footsteps approached from the far corridor. Two women emerged from around the corner. Mid-conversation. Champagne glasses in hand. They slowed immediately upon seeing the scene. Elena. Adrian. Tension thick enough to stain wallpaper. One woman recognized him instantly. The other recognized drama. Neither hid it well. "Oh," one of them said, pretending surprise with all the subtlety of fireworks. "Sorry, are we interrupting?" No one believed that apology. Adrian's face hardened. The women lingered half a second too long before continuing down the hall. But not before one cast Elena a glance full of social curiosity. And just like that, the moment was no longer private. Elena felt it instantly. The shift. That irreversible transition from personal pain to public spectacle. Information had now entered circulation. Within minutes, this hallway scene would be reconstructed, exaggerated, weaponized. By midnight, half the ballroom would have theories. By morning, all of them would be wrong, yet still damaging. Perfect. Just perfect. Adrian glanced toward the women disappearing around the corner. A muscle in his jaw flexed. He understood implications. Good. Let him.
Elena inhaled carefully.
Her chest hurt now. Actually hurt. Like heartbreak had become anatomical. She needed to leave. Now. Not in 5 minutes. Not after closure. Now. She turned toward the staircase again. But Adrian stepped slightly into her path. Not touching her this time. Just existing in strategic obstruction. Elena, listen to me. There was an edge to his voice now. Urgency growing sharper. Interesting. So now he was emotional. How efficient. She met his gaze. What part would you like me to listen to first? Her voice remained deadly calm. The part where you forgot to mention your fiancé. Adrian exhaled once. Slow. Controlled. Dangerously measured. Sophia is not my fiancé. Elena stared at him. Then laughed again. This time with genuine disbelief. The sound echoed embarrassingly in the corridor. Right. It's complicated. Even worse. Somehow worse. Complicated was just cowardice wearing better tailoring. Elena shook her head.
No.
She stepped closer now. Not affectionately. Not tenderly. But with the quiet intensity of someone reaching emotional threshold. It isn't complicated. Her eyes held his. You let me walk into that room blind. Every word landed with surgical precision. You stood there beside another woman while an entire room toasted the two of you. Adrian remained still. Listening. Absorbing. Too late. And somehow, Elena continued, voice lowering further, you still seem to believe the issue is me leaving early. That one landed. A visible shift crossed his expression. There. A hit. Good. But satisfaction was short-lived. Because just as Elena stepped back again, a new voice entered the corridor. Bright. Elegant. Terrible timing. Adrian. Sophia. Of course. Because humiliation apparently came in sequels. Elena went still. Every muscle locked. Sophia approached them from the private reception room with impossible poise. Silver gown. Diamond ring. Perfect posture. Her expression was composed, but observant. Sharp enough to cut glass. She stopped beside Adrian. Not too close. Just close enough. A territorial masterpiece disguised as politeness. There you are, Sophia said smoothly. Then her gaze shifted to Elena. Warm smile. Cold eyes. And you must be Elena. Not are you Elena. Not uncertainty. Recognition. She already knew. That realization hit Elena like ice water. This woman knew who she was. How? Since when? To what extent? 1,000 alarms sounded internally. Sophia extended one manicured hand. Adrian has mentioned you. The sentence was so elegantly delivered it almost passed for kindness. Almost. Elena looked at the offered hand. Then at Adrian. His silence told her everything. Not enough to explain. Far too much to deny. Interesting. So this was the game. No one had informed Elena she was already a character in it. Sophia's hand remained suspended politely. Waiting. A trap disguised as etiquette. Take it, and participate in your own humiliation. Refuse, and become spectacle. Brilliant. Elena hated her instantly. Not irrationally. Professionally. She slowly reached forward and shook Sophia's hand. Brief. Cool. Controlled. Congratulations, Elena said. Again. Same word. Different blade. Sophia smiled. Beautifully. Thank you. Oh, she was good. Very good. Adrian looked like a man actively considering arson. Tension now vibrated between all three of them like a live wire. This had officially become intolerable. Elena withdrew her hand. Enough. She was done. Done with the hallway. Done with Adrian. Done with Sophia's weaponized elegance. Done with tonight. She adjusted her clutch beneath one arm, lifted her chin, and summoned every remaining molecule of dignity. Well, she said softly, I should leave you both to your evening. This time, she didn't wait for permission, didn't wait for explanation, didn't wait for Adrian to manufacture one more emotional obstacle. She moved around them, elegant, composed, unreachable. Her heels clicked decisively toward the staircase. 1 step. 2. 3. Elena. Adrian again. More forcefully this time. She didn't stop. Would not stop. Behind her, Sophia's voice lowered. Should I be concerned? Oh, now that was deliciously catastrophic. Elena nearly smiled. Not because she enjoyed pain, but because at least someone else was finally uncomfortable. She descended the staircase faster now, the ballroom below expanding into view with each step. Music, laughter, crystal chandeliers, champagne, and dozens of unsuspecting witnesses. Wonderful. Because apparently private breakdown was no longer an available luxury. As Elena reached the final steps, she immediately sensed it. Energy shift. Attention. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Guests were no longer casually mingling. Instead, a noticeable cluster had formed near the ballroom center. People gathering, watching, whispering, phones subtly appearing. A giant digital screen above the stage flickered to life. Static. Then image. The crowd gasped. Elena stopped dead. Her blood turned to ice. Displayed across the massive ballroom screen was a photograph of her. Not just any photograph. A deeply personal one. Private. Intimate. Never meant to exist in public. And beneath it, in elegant gold lettering, were 5 words that made her stomach drop. The woman behind Adrian Blackwell. Silence detonated across the ballroom. Every head turned. Slowly, collectively, toward Elena. She stood frozen at the base of the staircase. Exposed, cornered, ruined, and somewhere above her, Adrian swore under his breath. Too late. Far, far too late. For one horrifying second, Elena forgot how to breathe. Not metaphorically. Literally. Air refused to enter her lungs. Her body locked in place at the base of the staircase, one hand gripping the railing so tightly her fingers began to ache. The ballroom had gone unnaturally quiet. Not the soft quiet of elegance. Not the respectful quiet of attention. This was sharper. Hungrier. A silence built from collective fascination. The kind of silence that only appeared when something deeply embarrassing was happening to someone else. And tonight, that someone was her. The giant screen above the ballroom stage glowed mercilessly. Her image illuminated in impossible scale. Her face. Her smile. That private photograph. The one taken months ago on a quiet evening Adrian had insisted no cameras were around. She had been laughing in it. Relaxed. Unprotected. Real. Not the composed, curated Elena Carter the world usually saw. This version was softer. More intimate. More dangerous. And beneath it, those words still burned like a public accusation. The woman behind Adrian Blackwell. A murmur spread through the room like wildfire finding dry grass. First one whisper, then 3, then 20. Then the entire ballroom erupted into controlled social chaos. Oh my God! Who is she? Did you know about this? Is that why Sophia is here? Was this intentional? Phones emerged more boldly now, no longer pretending discretion. Tiny screens lifted at strategic angles, recording, capturing, archiving her destruction. Elena felt nausea rise violently in her throat. No, this couldn't be real. This couldn't actually be happening. Not on a ballroom screen. Not in front of half the city's elite. Not while she was still standing here like an emotional hostage. Move. Her brain screamed the command. Move. But her legs refused. Like her nervous system had filed for resignation. The chandelier light above suddenly felt cruel. Too bright. Too exposing. Every crystal reflection became another spotlight. Every whisper became amplified. Every gaze felt physical. Like tiny cuts. She could feel them landing. Slice. 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 Across her skin. Across her dignity. Across whatever remained of this evening. Elena. Adrian's voice reached her from behind. Closer now. Urgent. But his name inside her mind no longer sounded safe. It sounded adjacent to catastrophe. She didn't turn. Couldn't. Because turning would mean facing him. And if Elena looked at Adrian right now, she wasn't sure what would happen. Would she cry? Scream? Collapse? Slap a billionaire in front of investors? All equally possible. Instead, her eyes remained fixed on the screen. On that smiling version of herself. How cruel. To be publicly ruined by a happier version of your own face. She remembered that night instantly. A rooftop dinner. Wind tangling her hair. Adrian looking unusually relaxed. A rare softness in him. She had laughed because he made some absurdly dry comment about billionaires pretending to enjoy charity dinners. Then, click. She remembered the sound. A camera. She'd asked, "Did you just take a picture?" He'd replied, "Maybe." And she had smiled. Because back then, secrecy felt romantic. Not weaponized. Stupid. So unbelievably stupid. A sharp ache bloomed behind her eyes. Danger zone. Tears approaching. Absolutely not. Not here. Not in front of these people. Elena swallowed hard. Her throat burned. A voice from somewhere in the crowd rose slightly louder than intended. Well, this is awkward. Laughter followed. Small. Cruel. Enough. That did it. Something inside Elena finally restarted. Not emotionally. Mechanically. Survival mode. Her body moved before her heart could object. One step forward. Then another. Then another. She began walking. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just with the cold precision of someone evacuating a burning building while pretending the temperature is fine. The crowd parted instinctively. Like water around a blade. People moved aside as Elena passed through the ballroom. But not far enough to spare her their faces. Curiosity. Sympathy. Delight. Judgment. Calculation. Pity. Pity was the worst one. She hated pity. A woman in sapphire silk lowered her champagne glass and whispered to the man beside her. A younger influencer-looking guest was openly filming. An older board member frowned with the expression of someone already forecasting PR complications. Everyone was consuming her. Emotionally. Visually. Socially. This was no longer humiliation. It was content. Elena, wait. Adrian again. Still following. Still trying. Still somehow under the impression that conversation was a solution. Her heels struck marble in steady rhythm as she crossed the ballroom. Click, click, click. The sound felt louder than music, louder than gossip, louder than the internal cracking she was trying desperately not to acknowledge. She reached the grand exit doors. Almost there, almost free. A hand touched her elbow lightly. Not Adrian. Elena flinched and turned sharply. Vivian Harle. Of course. Platinum perfection. Concern carefully applied like luxury skincare. Elena, Vivian said softly, perhaps you should sit down. The suggestion nearly made Elena laugh in her face. Sit down. Interesting. As though this were mild dizziness and not public social assassination.
Infine, Elena replied.
Too quickly. Too sharply. Vivian raised both hands slightly. Of course. Her eyes flickered briefly to the screen behind them. Still glowing. Still catastrophic. How unfortunate. That word. Unfortunate. As though tonight had been a spilled drink. A wardrobe malfunction. A mildly inconvenient apocalypse. Elena's jaw tightened. Vivian leaned closer. Voice lower now. Between us, she murmured. I'd leave before the press downstairs gets a clearer angle. There it was. Useful information wrapped in social venom. At least someone was practical. Elena gave one tiny nod.
No gratitud visible.
Just acknowledgement. Then she pushed through the grand doors. Cold night air hit her like punishment and salvation all at once. She inhaled sharply.
Actual oxygen.
Real air.
Nos chandeliers. No violins. No strategic smiling.
Just darkness, city lights, and the distant sound of London traffic. Her heels clicked faster now across marble steps leading outside. A valet glanced up. Recognition flashed. Then awkward avoidance. Good. At least one person had survival instincts. Elena. Adrian's voice again. Closer than she expected. Damn him. Why was he still here? She descended the final step and stopped near a stone pillar just outside the entrance. Not because she wanted to. Because suddenly, her body gave out. Not physically collapsing. Not dramatically. But internally. Silently. A fracture line spreading through everything. Her breathing became uneven. Shallow. Unreliable. Hands trembling now beyond concealment. The clutch in her grip nearly slipped. No. Not now. Hold it together. Just a little longer. But the tears had finally arrived. Not dramatic sobbing. Not cinematic collapse. Just one single tear. Warm. Silent. Sliding down her cheek with unbearable betrayal. Elena closed her eyes. Damn it. That one tear felt like surrender. She wiped it away instantly, almost angrily, as though offended by her own humanity. But the body had made its decision. Another followed. Then another. Small. Quiet. Uninvited. Her shoulders remained perfectly straight. Posture immaculate. Even now. Especially now. If heartbreak had a dress code, Elena intended to outperform it. Adrian reached her seconds later, breathing slightly heavier than usual. Not because he was tired. Because for the first time all evening, he looked genuinely rattled. Good. He should be. Elena. She opened her eyes slowly. Looked at him. Really looked. And what she saw almost made things worse. He looked angry. Not at her. At the situation. At whoever had done this. At the screen. At the world. But notably. Not shocked enough. That detail did not escape her. A dangerous thought surfaced. And once it appeared, it refused to leave. Did he know? No.
Impossible.
Was it? Her voice came out quieter than intended. Did you do this? Adrian stared at her. What? The screen. She held his gaze. Every word deliberate now. Did you know that was going to happen? For the first time tonight, Adrian looked genuinely stunned. Offended. Almost.
Elena, no.
Fast answer. Too fast. Or simply honest. Hard to tell anymore. Trust had become an extinct species.
Elena laugiedweakli.
More exhaustion than amusement. I don't know what's true tonight. That one hit him harder than accusation. Good. Because it was the most honest sentence she'd spoken all evening. Adrian stepped closer. Not touching. Just near enough for tension to become breathable. I need you to listen to me. There it was again. Need. Not want. Interesting. Elena shook her head once. Tiny movement. Massive meaning.
No.
Her voice steadied. Barely. You lost that privilege upstairs. Adrian's jaw tightened. Elena.
No.
Stronger this time. She looked directly at him, tears drying cold against her skin. No softness left now. Only damage. Only exhaustion. Only clarity sharpened by pain. You don't get to explain after the explosion. That landed. Hard. A car pulled up near the entrance. Black.
Luxury sedan.
Door opening. Escape. Elena stepped toward it. But before entering, she turned back once more. One final glance. At Adrian. At the man who had somehow become the center of both her greatest emotional vulnerability and tonight's disaster. And quietly, with enough restraint to make it lethal, she said, "You should go back inside." Adrian frowned. Elena. Your fiancé is waiting. She entered the car.
Door shut.
Barrier established. Temporary salvation. As the vehicle pulled away from the Royal Crescent Hotel, Elena leaned back against leather seats and stared blankly out the window. City lights blurred past. Cold. Distant. Uninterested. Her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar. Still beautiful. Still composed. Still broken in ways no one outside the vehicle could quantify. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Of course. Hands trembling slightly, she opened the message. Just 4 words. Enough to stop her breathing all over again. This was only phase 1. Elena went completely still. What? The car continued through the city. But suddenly, getting away no longer felt like escape. It felt like the beginning.